Okay, this is a video I'm really excited about because I've been on the lookout for some really good Guild Wars 2 World Boss video, but for some reason each one I found was from 7 years ago. This is the only relevant one that I could find, and it's from 1 year ago. So hopefully the stuff still stands, but yeah, it seems like a great video, so let's check it out. I really have been wanting to do at least one world boss in Guild Wars 2, but for some reason I never got the opportunity to do so because I only played for 2 months. So let's see what I missed.
Bosses are
I've
one
seen
of
some
the most
insane
popular
pictures, though.
aspects of Guild Wars 2.
They look so cool.
Massive enemies that require a ton of players to work together in order to take them down.
I
And
assume
today,
so.
I want to go over the 10
Damn!
best world bosses across the
What is that
entirety
shit?
of Guild Wars 2. This is another one of those two-part top 10 lists.
We have
because I'm
subtitles,
going to
yeah?
be going over the top 10 meta events in a future week, and the difference between the two can be a bit vague. But let's get started.
Wait, what?
In the number 10 spot is the Fire Elemental. This is a pretty fun and interesting boss fight that just has a lot of history and has become more popular recently, where you fight this boss in the Thermonova reactor in the Metrocrit province.
What?
Because it
Oh,
is
is this
in the
the boss?
Metrocrit province, this is
Damn,
a pretty
it
low-level
looks kinda
boss
dope.
that a lot of players will have done because it's one of the first big events in the game. The story going on here in about a 2-sentence summary is that the Thermonova reactor is an inquest experiment that exploded, unleashing a ton of chaos magic, and the explosion tore the fabric of reality in this area. Where there is a lot of stuff going on in this area, but one Asuran crew is trying to clean up this mess, but the chaotic energy fused with the cleaning golem's core and created this massive fire elemental. Back in the day, this was a joke of a fight. There is this cool spot up here that everyone used to sit on and just shoot the fire elemental for a few seconds and then kill him. And I actually
So it's like an old
this
boss?
because you have to do a slight skill jump to get up here, but nowadays we have mounts. Yet some players may remember that this boss
that's
was
cool.
insanely difficult.
So it's like a really old boss that people have, kind of gotten over used to, right? Because they killed him so many times, and now it's like, okay, who cares? By the way, I'm gonna just move my camera a bit so you guys can see. There you go.
When the game first released, and it got
Now you get
balanced
it.
in November of 2012 to the state of it being a joke. Until July of 2022, where this boss, alongside a few others, got updated again, and it actually became a pretty fun fight where you have to move around a bit and you fight the boss for longer than 10 seconds.
That's so good. That is such a great decision from the developers. Truly, I love when they do that. When something become outdated and too weak and they just revitalize it, it kind of reminds me of Ragnaros from Cataclysm. And, because he's such a fundamental character to the lore, right? And all that stuff in classic WoW, like, he's the GOAT. He's the first real boss you face in a raid. And it was so good to see him being revisited in Cataclysm, right? In the Firelands. It was so good. Like, it was truly so good. I love that. Everything about it. So it's so cool that they did that.
There is a bonus boss after this fight where a player has to do a bit of an adventure in order to get a key to unlock this boss, which is just a nice cherry on top. And the number 9 spot is the Claw of Jormag.
Oh damn,
this is
the
one
area
of the
looks
original bosses
neat.
that I think is just so iconic. When I think of Guild Wars 2 world bosses, this is one of the first ones that come to mind, and I have so much nostalgia related to this boss. This is one of the main world bosses that was highlighted prior to the release of Guild Wars 2,
look at
and was
that!
shared around a lot with.
That is insane. You get to fly like through the mountains and stuff with everybody. That is crazy.
The release of the game, where you fight one of Jormag's lieutenants in a pretty decent epic battle in the Frostgorge
Is that him?
where you work alongside the Pact. Unfortunately, this fight is actually kind of boring, where over the years it has become faster and faster to defeat because of power creep, and you mostly just stand in 2, technically 3 different places and DPS the boss down. Where when we look at the event as a whole, it has a pretty good foundation. The Pact assault on this dragon is indeed pretty epic. It just doesn't work out too well.
Oh, they're shooting at him from the turrets.
This boss is generally the most requested candidate for a massive update to the boss and its mechanics, where we have seen more bosses updated epic. It just doesn't work out too well in the modern age. Where I think this boss is generally the most requested candidate for a massive update to the boss.
Oh my god, don't show this to Blizzard. Please don't. They would literally faint. They will tell you. Blizzard would literally look at this and tell you this is impossible to do within a game because of coding and stuff. They would literally tell you that. Oh my god, that is insane.
Boss and its mechanics.
Gee, that was crazy good.
Updated to great success, like with the fire elemental we just talked about.
What the hell was
multiple
that?
other bosses we are about to talk about. Where I am personally super excited about this boss potentially being updated.
That's cool. The boss model itself, you can clearly tell that it is outdated though. You can tell. You can tell. It does look a bit outdated, but he looks cool. Like, he looks
Even
cool. I
if
like
it's
that.
nowhere on the horizon right now. But despite how underwhelming it can be in the modern day, it is just a super nostalgic fight for me, and probably one of the most important bosses in the game when it comes to early marketing.
Time to it sing.
In the number 8 spot is the Karka
Damn.
Queen. This is the first world boss to be added to the game after the initial release of Guild Wars 2, as she was introduced to the game in the Last Stand at South Sun release in May of 2013. The story going on here is actually kind of interesting.
Back in the
To give
day.
a quick summary, Canuck, who is the people's champion and hates the consortium, orchestrated the Karka to attack various settlements around South Sun Cove via some sort of toxin, where you have to go and defeat the different settlements, which drives out the Karka Queen, who you then fight. The fight itself is pretty fun. Back in the day, it was pretty unique and interesting, as the Karka were a new race that we were interacting with and were cool from an aesthetics point of view.
By the way, can anyone in the comments explain to me how world bosses work? Like, do you just go outside and everyone is expected to know the mechanics, or like what's going on? I truly have no idea. I just played for 2 months and I completed the core game, and that's it. I never gotten into the expansions and stuff. And I like didn't even really went that deep into like the core game, which is unfortunate. Now that I think about it,
we have fought a ton
it seemed like I missed out on a lot.
So this boss isn't as special anymore, but still fun. But I am someone who loves South Sun Cove and the Karka a lot. So on one hand, having a pretty cool fight with a pretty cool boss is just
this is
overall a good
giga
experience.
outdated.
But on the other hand, this is one of the primary reasons why people still come to South Sun Cove, and it's probably the only reason for many players. So to that end, I appreciate this boss for making an old and small map remain relevant.
So
for
a
all
nostalgia
these years.
boss. I respect that. I respect that. I understand.
Players are leaving the original maps of Guild Wars 2, as South Sun Cove is the first post-release map, which I think is just a cool experience.
Damn, the framers didn't survive too.
Killing this boss rewards one of the first titles that many new players get, called Killer Queen, and I always appreciate seeing all these new players running around the world repping this title. In the number 7
nostalgia
spot
boss,
is
that is fine.
Dragonstorm. This is one of those bosses that could be on this list or on the upcoming meta events list, but it seems like mechanically and by most people, it is considered a world boss, where this is the final fight of the Icebreed Saga, and it is pretty cool. But it has quite a bit of baggage, where the Icebreed Saga was a really fun season with excellent maps and stories, but it got cut in half, where the rest of the story was condensed down into multiple ill-received releases that all culminated with this world boss. Where when we ignore the state of these releases and how the story did not get what it deserved, this boss fight is incredible. Where you're fighting both Primordus and Jormag at the same time, which is a story beat that has been hinted at for a very long time now, and we finally get to experience it. Where the fight itself mostly takes place between each Elder Dragon's champion, where you have to fight them, fight a bunch of other minions, and take a few jabs at the Elder Dragons themselves. The majority of what is going
that is sick. So each dragon summon his champion.
Going on here is how you are instigating the 2 Elder Dragons to destroy.
Bro, Guild Wars has some of the best designs I've seen. I'm not even joking. Like, and I recently said this in a video. Like, their armor are like the armor sets are insane. Their weapons are crazy, and now you can clearly tell that the monster design is phenomenal. This is outstanding. This is how an epic dragon should look like. And this is insane considering the fact that World of Warcraft Dragonflight was an expansion that was based all around dragons, and everyone looks like a goddamn idiot. Like, everyone. And recently they butchered elves in Midnight. So it's kind of funny to see the difference between the two games.
Destroy each other, because that is the other way for them to be defeated.
God
bless.
Get to the Look end, at that.
Very cool cutscene.
He reminds me of the... Oh! Holy, look at that. He's clapping him. Yo, that is actually...
And a lot of people have different opinions about this fight because of the releases that it came out in, and how a lot of people have done this road boss a lot over the last few years. But all in all, it's just a pretty epic and fun fight. And
damn,
the
that looks cool.
Is the Shadow Behemoth. This is another world boss that released with Guild Wars 2 in 2012, and is another world boss located in a starting zone, but this time in Queensdale, where for many of the same reasons as the Fire Elemental, a ton of players have fought this world boss before, but a lot more players have a ton of nostalgia when it comes to fighting this boss.
Yasharaj escaped from World of Warcraft because it was too bad and he came to Guild Wars.
Because it is located in Queensdale, the human starting zone, and is also, in my opinion, a fair bit cooler than the Fire Elemental, where you have this massive nightmare creature that is trying to break free from the underworld and into Tyria.
Cool. Yeah, he does look like the boss from Pandaria, right? I forgot the name, like the Darkness brother, like this guy.
Where you have to fight him back. where this boss takes place in God's Lost Swamp, which houses the Temple of the Ages, an incredibly important lore location. Where this fight has always been pretty cool, but just like the Fire Elemental, it got updated in 2022 with new mechanics, and it is a ton better than what it used to be. Where aesthetically, the fight stays the same, but it has become a lot more engaging and has better flow to the fight that meets the modern standards of Guild Wars 2, and overall it is just an all-around good boss with incredible vibes.
That's cool.
And the number 5 spot is the Shatterer. This is this
is the guy that I've seen.
A lot of different factors from
I put him in this is the guy. I saw a really cool picture of him and I put him in a thumbnail. I used him in a thumbnail and I didn't even know who this guy is. I really hope, like, I didn't know who he was. I literally wanted to discover this in this video, and man, I got lucky and he actually showed up.
As we have already talked about. First off, just like the Claw Jormag, this is one of the most important bosses in the game when it comes to pre-release and early post-release footage and marketing for the game. And this is one of the biggest parts of Guild Wars 2 that was showcased and really brought a lot of players into the game. Alongside that, the boss fight is pretty cool. Where you have a massive battle between players and a dragon, where you can have some players on siege equipment shooting the dragon and other brand minions, and there's a lot of stuff going on here with healing crystals, break bars, and more mechanics. Back in the day, this boss suffered from being super easy, just like the Fire Elemental. There was a single spot that players could stand to just DPS the boss down quickly and safely, but in January of 2016, the boss was redesigned and a bunch of new mechanics were added to make the fight a lot more engaging.
That's so good. I'm so happy the developers are doing that. Just look at the problems certain bosses have that makes them super easy and just fix that. Like, that is so good. Blizzard would never do this, man. Like, Blizzard never doing that. They literally just release something, it's broken, and then they're like, nah, okay, who cares? Next expansion is going to release, and everything's going to be deleted anyway.
Where I think the boss is a lot of fun, and this update was incredible. Unfortunately, with the existence of power creep over the years, we're pretty close to that pre-2016 experience, where if players don't kill the boss before he does any mechanics, players will typically kill him after one round of mechanics. But overall, this fight is really, really cool, and I love it a lot. And it's probably one of the most important pieces of content in the entirety of Guild Wars 2.
Damn, he looks
And the number
dope.
4 spot is the Jungle Wurm. This is a road boss that is just so incredibly nostalgic for me that it wormed its way this high on my list.
Wait, was that a face? Was that a face? I literally just noticed that.
Incredibly nostalgic for me that it wormed its way this high on my list. Just like with the Fire Elemental and Shadow Behemoth, this is a world boss located in a starting zone that most players should have done, and just like those two bosses.
This player has something for nostalgia. I noticed that. I paid attention. I did my homework. Like, this guy has something for nostalgia and like starting zone, and I appreciate that. It really shows what kind of dude he is. I like this guy. I like this guy. He's cool.
This is another world boss that was updated in 2022. The Jungle Wurm is located in Caledon Forest, which is one of my favorite zones in all of Guild Wars 2. I am a big Savari lover, so just everything related to the Savari would naturally be one of my favorite things in the game. And this is like the Savari world boss. The updated version of this boss is pretty good, and it's an all-around enjoyable fight. Even before the update, this boss was probably one of the...
Reminds me of the Elden Ring Sunflower boss from the DLC, if you play that. Even with the attack he just did, like the spinny thing.
And it's an all-around enjoyable fight.
Really reminds me of that.
This boss was probably one of the best basic road bosses in the game, and it was quite a bit of fun. The area that you fight the Jungle Wurm in is incredible.
Looks cool. Look at
the stone heads are one of my favorite decorations in all Guild Wars 2, and they look so cool. The story going on here with cleansing the corruption is also pretty great. I love the vicinity to the Twilight Arbor dungeon, and it is just overall a pretty great fight and boss. In the number 3 spot is Drakkar. This is another road boss released during the Ice Root Saga as a part of the Shadow in the Ice release, where this boss has a ton of story related to it, going all the way back to the original Guild Wars, where Drakkar corrupted the Norn Svanir who became the Nornbear, with all the events surrounding that character that eventually inspired the cult
they're
the
fighting
Sons of Svanir that we see in Guild Wars 2 today. So being able to combat this campaign against Jormag was perfect.
Nice.
The vibes of this boss and how it fit into the vibes of the release were also great. They were going for kind of an eldritch horror vibe, and they did pretty well.
You gotta give it to them. They do dragons like no other game done. Like, that is perfect. That is insanely good design. Like, you gotta give them respect for that.
Well, across the release. The way that Drakkar slithers through the ice and bursts out at you while Jormag is trying to manipulate you is just great.
Wait, he went through the walls?
The ice and bursts out at you while Jormag is trying to manipulate you.
And then he breaks in.
and the boss fight itself is also pretty
crazy.
good. It is a relatively new boss fight compared to the ones that released in 2012, and it is a lot of fun.
Cool.
I definitely enjoy coming through here and fighting the bosses every now and then, and I also loved getting all of the achievements back when the boss originally released. I like all of the different phases and how we go to special arenas to fight 3 different mini-bosses throughout the fight. And just all in all, Drakkar is a pretty solid world boss.
Bit of a splash.
And is one of my favorites in the game.
Where is he fighting them though? Inside of like an icy cavern? And he just breaks out of the, like, outside is like water and he just broke in? How does it work?
In the number 2 spot is Tequatl,
hey, I know this
the
area.
Sunless. This is an interesting boss for me to put on this list because I'm actually not a super big fan of this fight. Overall, I think it's pretty decent. I really like how Tequatl destroys the tower at the start of the fight. Fighting back towards a Risen is great, and the Mega Laser shooting
I know this guy!
is always fun. But the strengths of this fight is also its weakness.
I know him!
When you look at the entirety of Guild Wars 2, this is the single most popular world boss in the entire game, hands down.
Have I killed him? Is this possible? Dude, I remember him. I remember this guy. I recognize the ship wreckage from earlier, and I know who he is. I think I killed him. I think that might be a thing.
Tequatl spawns at reset every
I
single
may have
day,
done a world
and
boss,
it's probably the most played event in the game each day.
I just didn't remember.
And I mean a lot of people do this world boss every day, and for good reason. It's a fun fight that is super rewarding. But because of that, I think this boss has kind of gotten a bit stale, for me at least. Where I've done this boss so many times in my life that I don't really do it often anymore because the thought of fighting him is kind of off-putting at times. But in a way, that's a good thing.
Man, he's cool. Yeah, he's gonna fall from the sky.
I remember that so many times over the years, and I do still do it every now and then, and it is still a pretty good boss fight. This is another boss that got overhauled and is actually one of the, if not the first.
I love the fact they call him like the Sunless, and you can clearly see this dude haven't seen the light of day. Dude, he has nothing, bro. It's pale as hell, and I like that.
Boss to get a major overhaul in Guild Wars 2. It kind of depends on what your criteria for that is. Where way back in the day,
like
the
his
fight was
wings
very...
are like, look at that. His wings are all messed up and rotten. That is so cool. That is such a cool design. Even his head. Does he have eyes? I can't really tell. I mean, not from this angle and not with this quality. Look how sick. He looks half dead.
Easy, and you kind of just DPS
like a resurrected dragon.
But with the overhaul, there are a ton of phases and mechanics you have to do. Even if it is kind of just DPS.
Oh, everyone is running away.
And while I am a bit
it's
tired
so
of this
fun
boss,
to see everyone doing this.
Fantastic boss.
Interesting, you can use flying mounts, though.
Rewarding and the.
By the way, just a question: how you're being rewarded for your performance at a world boss? Because I assume that you can't go in and out constantly. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Is it by time, by damage, by healing, by defense? I really don't know. So I'm just asking.
Cultural impact that it has had on the game.
I have no idea.
The community easily puts it this high up on the list. And now for the number 1 spot for my favorite road boss in the entire game, and it has to go to Triple Trouble. There's no debate for me. This is easily my favorite road boss in all of Guild Wars 2, where Triple Trouble originally released during Living Road Season 1 in a double update that released both this boss and also the Twisted Marionette, which is another fantastic boss that I love a lot, but I don't think it has aged very well. But it did make my honorable mentions list. In Bloodtide Coast, you can work alongside the Vigil, who sends out 3 soldiers to investigate 3 different spots where there have been disturbances, where they force 3 jungle worm heads out of the ground that the entire map has to split up into 3 groups in order to fight, and each one is incredibly unique. The Amber Worm is above and beyond my favorite, where you have to get eaten alive by the jungle worm, grab a spear gun, shoot your way out of the belly of the worm, and then shoot the worm with the spear gun.
That is
the Cobalt
sick.
Worm is also fun, where you have to gather kegs, some of which require you to do a small jumping puzzle.
That is so clever. That is so clever. So you have 3 worms, and each worms is completely unique, boss, and you have to defeat them. I wonder, do you have to defeat them at the same time, or like you just kind of just split and kill whenever, right? Wow, this regardless, insanely good idea.
Worm. And the Crimson Worm is pretty fun in its own right, where you have to collect different phytotoxins, but it's definitely a bit more boring, yet more straightforward for newer players. Where I think the biggest aspect of this fight that I love are the mechanics and the vibes. Where fighting these
can you help the others?
Is a ton of fun gameplay-wise, and the atmosphere and aesthetics of this fight are great, especially the Amber Worm with how you're eaten alive by the worm. But alongside all of that, this is a pretty important boss when it comes to the culture of the game, where this is still a pretty decently challenging boss, but it's pretty much a guaranteed kill in the post-reset group each day. But back when the boss originally released, it was incredibly challenging, where communities on servers, back when servers were imported in PvE, came together to try to beat this boss for the first time ever, where when a server got rolled first, the leader gave a pretty impressive speech that was memorialized on this plaque here, link down in the comments.
This day we came together, this day, friends, family, players of all kinds from all over this wonderful world of ours.
What?
We came together and we defeated this one that had tormented us for so long. Triple trouble, more like no more, no more!
And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed.
Okay, this was such a great video. Was this like the Leroy Jenkins of Guild Wars 2? Okay, that is actually dope. I liked his picks. Yeah, they looked cool. That was insane. I gotta admit though, like the claw of Jormag, dude. When they took him out of the sky.
When we look at the event as a whole, it has
that was crazy. Where was it? Yeah,
well
here.
In the modern age.
Just look at that.
This boss is generally the most requested
that is
candidate for a massive update to the boss.
That is one of the craziest thing I've ever seen in an MMORPG in my entire life. I've never seen anything like it. This is actually insane. I wonder if there are more videos for me to check, but yeah, will definitely be all for today. But my god, this was absolutely wild. It actually makes me want to open a new character, because if I go back into the game, it's gonna be very difficult to just plop into my old warrior and kind of get lost, because I already done so much on it. But maybe I'll open a guardian, because I think guardians are cool, right? Because they have like shield and stuff, and I love that. And I love tanking, so I don't know, man. Maybe soon.